What's up, everyone, and welcome to ClearTalk. So in this video, we are back at the fire pit. It was raining a minute ago, but it is starting to calm down. It was just a little bit of light rain, but we're pretty much covered. We're up underneath this tree here, so it's not a big deal. I'm gonna power through anyways. But just note, if it does start raining, it's okay. In this video, we're going to be talking about a little bit more in detail on the memorandum of understanding. That's such a weird word sometimes to say. And the reactions to it so far, which have been mixed, to say the least. Yes, what we know, yesterday I gave a quick kind of breakdown, breaking news thing for what we knew at the time, which was that basically, the agreement was agreed upon, I assume verbally, but then there was supposed to be there was an announcement of a more written or signed version to come Friday, official signing. And my initial reading of that was that was more than likely Iran's way of trying to make sure that the U.S. actually, obliged by this agreement, and not so much on the side of U.S. as the side of Israel. Because clearly, if there was going to be anybody that was going to upend this deal, it would be Israel. Interestingly enough, today, or late yesterday, one or the other, Vance actually come out. JD Vance actually come out in an interview stating that 5-day, the Friday thing was for the U.S. to make sure Iran agreed to the obligations that they are supposed to agree to, which I found very interesting, to say the least. But so anyway, yeah, that the narrative there is already being played up. So what we know, or what we understand, because the official agreement has not been released, even to my understanding, even at this point. It is expected within the next 24 to 48 hours. That's what keeps being said. Whether that happens or not, I'm not exactly sure. But the understanding there is that of course, the Strait of Hormuz is open. The complete ending of all aggression in all territories, including Lebanon. There is a question on whether or not the U.S. actually agreed to a complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Lebanon, or whether it was just, again, what we previously had heard was that that it was just going to be a ceasefire between everybody. And so that's the big question, one of the big questions for that, because things have been reported that that there was kind of the final hour capitulation of the U.S. was that there was going to be a withdrawal, and that was all in response to try to keep Iran from actually responding militarily to Israel, because as we know, Israel did the attack on Beirut in the southern suburbs there of Beirut, which was horrific, and according to Trump, like within the last hour before the agreement was supposed to be originally agreed on yesterday, and he and Iran, in fears that Iran was going to retaliate for that attack, and even statements from Iran apparently that they were going to do so. Trump quickly tried to save that from happening by going on True Social, basically condemning the attacks on Beirut, stating that it should not have happened, and that both sides, all parties, should immediately stop firing so that we could do this deal. And there was, again, reports that after doing that, the U.S. came to the Iranian negotiators, or there was negotiations, last minute sort of capitulation to change up and get Iran to back off, to not make an attack. That one, the U.S. naval blockade would be removed, which previously we know they were trying to say that that was going to remain in place until the actual final agreement, after the 60-day of negotiations continued. But now we know that the naval blockade is supposed to be actually removed now through this memorandum of understanding. And that the other part of that was that Israel would have to, would be pushed to withdraw the troops from Lebanon. Now, again, there have been, since that come out, U.S. officials, quote unquote, whoever these officials are, I have no clue, but U.S. officials supposedly reporting that that was not a part of the agreement, and that there was just ceasefire agreement, and that Israel will not be forced to remove. And there have been reports from Israel, from different sources and different people. You immediately had Ben Gvir come out saying that we would not be removing anything, and that we would be continuing our operations in Lebanon, and that nobody was going to stop us. There was official reporting that supposedly even Netanyahu, even though he publicly had not come out yet, that he had stated that that Israel was not in agreement with any withdrawal from Lebanon, and that they would be continuing operations in Lebanon. That was not, and that Israel was not bound to this agreement in any kind of way, really. So immediately you have the backlash from Israel. And see, Netanyahu is kind of in this weird place where he's being attacked from his left and right, for the same reason but different reasons. All, the fact that the left is wanting to kind of, make him sound bad so that he will be removed from office, because we know he has election coming up here at the end of the year for him, to whether or not he's even going to remain in power. But then, of course, the right is pressing him for not being severe enough, and not just giving in to U.S. demands, because Israel is a sovereign nation and we're independent and we can do what we want to. So there's a lot of pressure there for Netanyahu. If he is trying to stay in power, he's trying to, appease everybody, but Israel is a problem of his own making. The amount of propaganda and the amount of brainwashing and the amount of the influence that the extreme right has had on Israel, in basically turning Israel into just this complete chaotic Nazi-like nation, is of his making, along with many others, but it is of his making. And he's placed himself in a position where he is finding himself in a hard place, to where he knows that breaking from America is really not an option for Israel. He's smart enough to know that, but at the same time, he also knows that he cannot, if he wants to remain in power, he cannot in any way show that he is allowing the U.S. to dictate what Israel does or what he does. And most certainly, that any kind of agreement between the U.S. and Iran is to dictate what Israel does. So, we have, and as of right now, you have already had continued attacks on both sides, but starting with Israel, as usual. Israel, not only did they do attacks, continued attacks in Gaza, but they did they basically made an attack, attempted attack, potentially assassination attack on a journalist in Lebanon, and fortunately he survived that attack. But they have done other attacks as well, and Hezbollah has reacted to those attacks. So there's continuation of hostilities in Lebanon as of even today still. And so there is certainly a strain on this official signing happening on Friday. Like I said, Israel was going to do everything it could to upend. It is stubborn and bound to continue everything it can in Lebanon, to do its destruction, to continue its occupation, continue its scorched earth campaign in Lebanon like it did Gaza. They're bound and determined to do so, and they will not bend. Clearly, they will not bend to even the almighty powerful America, the almighty powerful Trump. So, will this completely upend the agreement between the U.S. and Iran? That is still in question. Iran, from what I'm understanding in reports, is that they are feeling like, while there might be an agreement between the U.S. and Iran, that ultimately this is not over, that there will be a future war, possibly even like immediate, between Iran and Israel. And the question there again would be, will U.S. involve itself if that were to happen? Or will we completely back out? And give, and let Israel to its own whims in that. Because clearly they are not willing to actually listen to us at all. Or will we, again, wind up coming to Israel's defense and all of this just completely resets? And this ultimately winds up just a complete manipulation of the oil industry, where Trump gets to get a win because you have oil futures now diving down, down like 4% I think the barrels are at like $85 a barrel right now, something like that. The last I saw. How quickly that will translate to the pump is a whole different question. As we know, this is the period in time where all the oil execs will try to make bountiful profits for themselves, while continuing to keep prices up at the pump. And all this is in advance of even any actual like blockade or opening of the strait actually technically is happening. I mean, there's still a lot of mines that have to be cleared, and that is supposed to be being worked out throughout this week. so that there will be a complete full official opening of the strait by Friday, which could be another element to why the signing is on Friday, is like giving a week for all the conditions to be met. Around the Strait of Hormuz, around the blockade being removed, so that everything can actually start to flow freely. And of course, on top of that, aggressions ended. So, I mean, either Israel has a week to do whatever the hell they want to Lebanon until they finally stop by Friday, or a question of whether or not they will just continue to do what they want regardless of this agreement. There's also the talk of money and sanction relief when it comes to Iran. That Iran would not agree to this without an upfront lifting of some sanctioned money, roughly around $24 billion, which the Trump administration has stated they would not do, but there are some back channel talks and stuff that there might be some, let's say, transferring of funds between some of the Arab states to Iran, that is ultimately this money, but in a way that Trump can state, oh, we didn't have any, we did not directly give them any money. So that he can sell that, because, you know, his whole argument has been that Obama just gave him so much money, all these billions of dollars, but yeah, it looks like we are in this agreement, we're talking about like giving them almost 10 times the amount Obama supposedly, quote unquote, gave them. Everything about this agreement is technically worse than the JCPOA in practically every way. It is remarkable the amount of strength that Iran has gotten out of this whole situation. The amount of negotiation power and placement that they have gained. I mean, you think about it. Iran has been able to take on 2 nuclear powers in this and still stand, still have the ability to cause fear in at least one of those nuclear powers, if not both of them, that they are a threat and they could be a continued threat, and that they have not been, their resolve has not been upended. And that is big. That is big for Iran. One other interesting part to this whole thing is that this comes from which a lot of this actually has come from Jeremy Scahill. He's of Drop State News. But one thing he has talked about here recently is that Iran, that all this negotiation that happened up to this point, and the reason why there was so, or what they have determined, Iranian officials that have talked to about this, what they determined was that they were basically having this complication of trying to come to a deal, and realized that when it comes to Trump, that he was so erratic and that something was off, that they actually brought in and hired in psychiatric professionals to help with negotiations and to define the question of mental health when it comes to Trump. And that once they did that, and they basically, these psychiatric professionals diagnosed Trump with a like a whatever kind of mental illness or mental health issue that they constructed causes his reactionary, like, chaos, if you will, that they started to help with determining how to create statements and negotiation terms that would better resonate with Trump, or to give him a better understanding, or a more positive direction in those talks. And ever since they did that, they said that there was an overwhelming change and a progression in these talks that is, and they are very much attributing a lot of the progression in these talks to that act alone, outside of also bringing in Qatar into the negotiations, because they were becoming increasingly concerned with the Pakistani negotiators, because of the even though Iran and Pakistan have always had pretty good relations, they were seeing that Pakistan and the U.S. relations seem to be seem to not be equaling, or seem to be so strong, that Pakistan was kind of playing this devil's advocate, kind of, or like this, they'll say one thing to one and then say another thing to the other to try to make each other happy, but they weren't technically on the same page. Because they would tell Iran something that supposedly the U.S. agreed to, but then they would hear, Trump say something completely different, or, and it just wasn't adding up. So they were coming increasingly annoyed with Pakistani negotiations, so that's when they just decided to bring in Qatari negotiators, and that also, along with the psychiatric professionals diagnosing the health concerns around Trump's mental state, and in negotiating and making a deal, all helped to progress these talks. So that is very interesting, to say the least. So it is interesting. This will be an interesting week to see how things progress. How much determination it is by Israel to try to blow this up. Whether or not we will get compliance on those extremes. And what actually happens. I am wanting to feel positive that something will ultimately become of agreement, and that we will end these hostilities and end the war, as far as the U.S. is concerned. But I do feel quite concerned and not even remotely positive that Israel will in any way agree to this. Which again puts me in a place where I don't feel positive and don't feel good about even us staying to this agreement, because of the relationship between us and Israel, and the determination of so many in our government, in this administration, even those of civilian influence, having a problem with the U.S. breaking from Israel. And that's the key thing there, because that's the other thing I was trying. I knew there was one more thing that I was wanting to talk about, and I couldn't quite remember it. There are people that feel this is the ultimate goal from both sides. Iran, the United States, and Israel ultimately trying to break apart Iran from all of these axes. They break them apart from Hezbollah, break them apart from Hamas, Houthis, and all these other. But the key one right there is Hezbollah, from Iran. Like, they think that there's and I think this is coming from Israel more than even the United States. The United States wants to create a relationship with the Lebanese government, and it use its military forces to try to control Hezbollah in a way that that Hezbollah will break from Iran, or Iran will be forced to break from Hezbollah. And Israel just, they're just using military force to try to upend, everything, or either force Iran to break from Hezbollah, which that doesn't even make sense. But from Iran's perspective, there is an thought that Iran is actually trying to break the United States and Israel up. And causing a rift there. So here is the question I beg to you, and the question that I think is an interesting thing, a thought exercise, is when this is all over, or what you were seeing happening, is there a more likelihood chance of Iran breaking from Hezbollah than the United States breaking from Israel? Who do you think is more likely to actually break up? I don't feel, because Iran has very much tried to defend and protect Hezbollah throughout these negotiations pretty strongly in Lebanon. And they're in trying to pressure a decrease in aggression towards them that has stood pretty firm this whole time, to the point that it even looks like the United States bent the knee in the 11th hour and gave in to some asks of Iran. But it is being reported at this point that, funny enough, as close as Trump is with Netanyahu, and their, quote-unquote brotherly-like relationship, that he has had some very fierce words about Netanyahu in the past few weeks. Some even claiming that he has been more aggressive in language towards the Israeli prime minister than any previous president has about an Israeli prime minister. Although I'm not completely convinced of that. Calling him fucking crazy, saying that he's, what was the other one? Oh, and that he has no fucking judgment in this. So whatever. I mean, if there is to be a break from Israel, I don't feel that the pressure is going to come from the administration or any kind of leadership in the U.S. It will be from the continued fracturing of citizen pressure, of even within MAGA, within Republicans, the growing sentiment that Israel is becoming a stain on the United States, is gaining all this, influence in a way that is hurting the United States. I mean, the Pentagon themselves just last week, we know, raised the threat level of like Israeli like surveillance concerns on the U.S. To the level that we normally put our adversaries on. Okay, and Israel is supposed to be an ally. No ally has been put on this type of level before, but the Pentagon placed Israel on that level as a security concern for surveillance on America, and their as like that is in itself damning for a relationship between the United States and Israel to continue, especially in the way that some of these Republican congressmen are trying to, marriage our military and intelligence together with Israel. Like this is a major concern. So yeah, there is a growing consensus amongst the American people that Israel is a problem. And while it's not to say, it's not to be anti-Semitic, it's not to like hate on all Jews or something. It's the problem of this Israeli government and the Israeli practice of the Zionist practices that they are doing. Their willingness and ideology to scorch earth all the people that they don't like, or anybody who even pushes back on them in any kind of way. I mean, there have been Israeli Zionist speakers and stuff that have basically talked about how they have infiltrated all kind of sectors, federally and throughout the states, in a way that they have the ability to watch and have access and can influence policy in a way that if anybody is in opposition to Israel, which they call anti-Semitism, that they will come after us, that they will come after anybody that does that, and basically ruin their life. That has been stated openly. But I mean, which goes completely against the U.S. right to free speech and being able to express yourself in any kind of way you want. Like me right now, that would be threatening me and what I'm saying in this video, what I've said in multiple videos. I have a string that's I see hanging off this hat here. So yes, there is a growing sentiment in the United States that Israel is a problem. And that pressure would be the only, I feel like, the only pressure that could possibly force this administration, or quite frankly, any administration, to start to cut ties from Israel in a way that would be meaningful and truly beneficial to the American people. To get out from underneath these destructive practices that Israel and the Zionist movement, the Zionist regime that is in control there, the actions that they have been doing for decades now, seriously needs to happen. So again, we have 5 days. We'll have to see what happens. Hopefully something comes of this positively. Hopefully we can mount some sort of pressure on Israel to actually get them to agree or to back off or something. But I'm not feeling too confident in that, to be honest. So let me know what you think. And again, thank you for any support that you give. There's links in the description for any of the other channels or for any support that you would like to give. But thank you very much for joining me. And until next time, peace. ClearTalk, I'm out.